Hello, everybody. I'm John Melby with Become Demand Driven. Welcome back to the Idea Lounge, where we try and generate some thought-provoking discussions that makes you think a little bit differently about supply chain and maybe helps you find a solution that you've been searching for. Today, I want to go back and revisit something we talked about and lead us further towards a solution. And in order to do that, we're going to have to step into the actual Idea Lounge. Now, this is what I'm going to call this is a standard supply chain problem. And what I'm talking about is that for my company, if a customer gives me an order, let's assume I'm a manufacturer. If a customer gives me an order, and from the date that they want that, that gives me a date that I need to start producing the product. And from that date, I can calculate, based on the lead time from my supplier, when I need to release a purchase order so that I have the product on the date that I need it so that I can deliver the product to my customer. Now, a fairly simple diagram. If this is the date I need it, this is the date I need to order it. But the customer doesn't always give me enough time to wait for that order to come in order for me to place the order with my supplier. And if you want to dig deeper into that, there's another video that you can look at with more detail in that regard. But let's assume for now that we're in agreement that the customer doesn't tell me in time for me to wait for the order in order to release my purchase order. Now, the underlying premise of all of the tools of traditional planning that we use in supply chain says, I need this number, and I need this number to be precise so that I can today, or whenever this release date is, that I can also place an order with my suppliers that is also very precise. Now, you've heard me use the word precise enough times to say the underlying problem is that this is a prediction and a forecast and is actually not only not precise, it's guaranteed to be incorrect. We don't know exactly how much incorrect it's going to be, but we know it's going to be incorrect. But we have to assume that this number is precisely correct because I have to make a decision on this other end of the spectrum that has to be precise. So I'm doing my work so that precisely the product can arrive on this date, so that precisely the customer will get their product when they need it. And depending on how long of a lead time I have here, that could be a pretty significant chance for disruption throughout that entire process. And you can just imagine multiple disruptions where one day they wanted it a week earlier, and the next day they want to change the quantity. We can have multiple disruptions over this, sometimes 90 days, 180 days, 270 days. There's a long time there for disruption to disrupt us. Now, that's kind of the essence of the problem, that we are focused on precision and making precision happen. Realizing that precision can't happen doesn't help us. And knowing that that precision isn't correct also doesn't help us. It just creates more chaos in our supply chain. Now, if I have inventory in my warehouse, let's follow that scenario. The customer gives me a due date to ship product to them. That due date is now known. And if I already have the inventory needed to make that shipment, I don't really care about this. I already have the inventory. But our traditional planning tools don't know what to do with that. They assume you don't have any inventory until you do, and then they give you a different answer, right? It's a calculator that's telling you you need to place an order here. Unless maybe you have this, then you don't need to place an order. But you probably should place an order anyway, just not aiming at this target date. And your mind kind of just blows up. Now, when we know that that precision can't happen, a couple of things are important. One is depending on, you're not managing one supplier and one part number. So depending on how many parts we're talking about and how many different lead times you have, different suppliers, different routes to get that product delivered to you, each part is going to be subject to more or less variability or disruptive practices. So everything has to be kind of looked at individually. So what can we do? How can we change things to get away from the precision and trying to force precision to work in a world where precision cannot work? Quick example. If you have a colleague that drives to work for an hour to get to work and you live 10 minutes away from work, if you call that colleague and say, meet me in the office in 20 minutes, well, it's impossible. That person is an hour away. And your possible response could be, I don't care, make it happen. Okay, I don't know how that's going to work out. You're going to go to the office, they're not going to show up. You're going to leave the office, and then they're going to show up. You can just imagine the chaos in that kind of Keystone Cops scenario where everybody's trying to figure out what to do, but it's an impossible situation. So, what we do is we talk about, and I'm going to step into a different idea lounge here. What we talk about is capacity or capability. Now, from the slide, what I can show you is a range of inventory. Remember, I said a minute ago, if I have the inventory I need, then all of that disruption coming from the supply lead time is kind of in the background somewhere. So, from a capability perspective, what I want to do is make sure that I have an amount of inventory that aligns with the capabilities that my customers are expecting from me. Again, assumes a business model that where this works, but this is just one of my presentations. So if we say I need the capability to make 100 of these a day, well, that gives me a target inventory to maintain. And what happens in this scenario is that I have an optimal range of inventory that will help me maintain that capability of being able to produce 100 units a day versus waiting for the next day's 100 units to be put in the system, which drives me to create a date, which drives me to go back and order parts from my supplier. Instead, I just make sure that I have enough inventory to maintain that capability of producing 100 a day. And that introduces the start of the solution to the precision conundrum or dilemma. Thanks for following along. I appreciate you. Reach out, follow me on LinkedIn, John Melby, or look at my website, Become Demand Driven, or continue viewing my other videos on this YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.